So I've been asked to just give you a simple orientation about all those units that are there in anatomy and physiology. So I have around 25 minutes, and I will try to give a small orientation on exactly what are those. So these are the topics. Around 10 units are there, and one by one I will just look at it. So about the human body orientation, so it starts with like how we describe a human body. Here you can see that there are three planes, basic planes, which are used for describing the human body. The sagittal plane, the anterior, posterior. So the sagittal plane, it will divide the body into right and left halves. Then this frontal plane that divides the body into the anterior and posterior parts. So anterior is nearer to the front of the body, posterior is nearer to the back of body, superior towards the head, inferior away from the head. So like that, these nomenclatures are used in order to describe different parts of the human body. Now these are the body cavities. So the cranial cavity, thoracic cavity, the abdominopelvic cavity, and all the organs are there inside it. In this way, we describe the anterior, posterior. So when we are taking something like a CT scan or MR, we describe using these nomenclatures, everything. Other than that, like we have this supine and prone, these two positions. So if a person is lying down with the back downwards, it is supine position, and if the anterior surface is on the ground, it is prone position. Then we come to cells. In cells, like it is a cellular physiology where we see the cell, which is a unit of life. Here, I just shown some cell organelles. So this is the cell membrane. The cell membrane is formed from this phospholipids. Now, this is a light microscopic image of a cell under a very low microscope, low power microscope, and this is a reconstruction of a cell done with ultra microscopic images. So many different ultra microscopic images. From that, we understood that different cell organelles look like this. So this is the nucleus. It looks like this under the ultra microscope, and we reconstruct it like this. And many other organelles inside the cell. Now, when we speak of anatomy, we are speaking about only structure. But when we come to physiology, we need to understand the working of any structure. Now, this cell, it has many different organelles, starting from the cell membrane, which comes in contact with the outer world, and then the nucleus, which is the control center. We have many elements which are called the cytoskeletal elements, which give the shape to the give shape to this cell. Then the rough endoplasmic reticulum, smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Rough endoplasmic reticulum, a site where the proteins are synthesized, and this mitochondria, where ATP is generated, which is the currency of the cell, like which energy of the cell, which generates energy inside the cell. Then coming to tissues, tissues are the groups of similar cells which do similar function. To understand tissues, we should first understand how the tissues are formed. Inside the mother's womb, first fertilization takes place. Then there are the initial cells, which are called totipotent cells. This stage of cells. At this stage, this cell, if you are removing and putting in some other womb, it will start grow and it will grow into a new human being. That's why they are called totipotent. So a total new human being can be formed, and then they become a small fetus, where they form a group of cells called this. So this blastocyst, it has pluripotent inner mass cells, which can form many different cells inside the body. And once they are differentiated, then we cannot again use those cells for any other purpose. So these pluripotent cells, they are the precursor cells for everything. So the growing embryo has these three layers: ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. And from these three, all the tissues of our body, they are formed. Now here I will just give you an idea of this epithelial tissue and connective tissue, because the rest of the systems, all other cells will come. In epithelium is the covering of any cell, any organ. So it can be the inner covering or it can be the outer covering. So squamous means a thin layer, a thin cell. And when we say cuboidal, the length and breadth is equal. Then columnar cells, so when the length is more and breadth is lesser. And many different types are there, like transitional epithelium. Then this pseudo stratified, where as such all cells are here attaching to the basement membrane, but it appears as many layers because of this nuclei at different levels. And this is a stratified cuboidal. So stratified squamous and stratified cuboidal. Stratified means when it is multi-layered, it is stratified. Simple is single layered. So we have many examples of this cells, this epithelia all over our body. So like our lungs, from inside they have this simple squamous epithelium, and our intestines, they have this simple columnar epithelium. Then this connective tissue. When you come to connective tissue, the first place, so connective tissue is the packaging tissue of our body. This connective tissue, it has the property of giving support to the body. So this here what I'm showing is the basement membrane. So basement of a epithelium. So how the epithelium is held together. So these cells, they need a support, and from here you can see this basal lamina is holding those cells, and here there are this anchoring. So you can see these are made up of collagen, many other fibril materials are there. And this is connective tissue proper, where you have fat cells, you have the white blood cells coming into picture, and many fibroblasts. So fibroblasts are the cells which are usually generate fibrin when healing process is taking place. Then skin and body membranes. So skin, it is the largest organ of our body. It has these two main layers, that is epidermis and dermis. And then we have this subdermis, where all other a lot of fat is there. The skin has many appendages, like this hair as well as nails. And there are many glands in this cell, like the sebaceous gland. There are sweat glands also. The main function of our skin as a receptor. So it is a touch receptor, touch, pain, pressure we receive. So there are these tactile corpuscles as well as open nerve endings in the cells, in the skin, which give us the sensation of touch as well as temperature, pain, etc. Now there are two types of cells, two types of skin. We have the skin with hair and this thick skin. So as we know, on the palms and on the soles, we do not have hair. So that is called thick skin. So there now you can see hair follicles are missing. And these are the body membranes. So majorly three main body membranes: the pleura, the pericardium, and the peritoneum. So pleura is the covering of the lungs. Now these three membranes, they have two layers. One layer is sticking to the organ on which they are covering. So that layer is called the visceral layer. So here you can see this visceral pleura as well as visceral pericardium. So inside is the visceral pericardium and the visceral peritoneum, and the outer layer is called the parietal pleura or parietal pericardium and parietal peritoneum. Inside these membranes, there is a very small amount of fluid. So here there is pleural fluid in pleura, and pericardium has pericardial fluid, and there here in our abdomen, so this peritoneal fluid. So if the peritoneal fluid suddenly increases in volume, it is called ascites. We need to remove that fluid. Here also pericardial effusion can happen, and here this is the pyothorax, where inside the pleural space, a lot of pus you can see has been formed, and it is going to drain. In the hematological system, the blood system of our body, the blood, it is formed from the bone marrow, as you know. And infant less than 1 year, so this is the amount of red bone marrow in their body, and this is the amount of red bone marrow in an adult person. It has a stem cells, this pluripotent hematopoietic stem cells, those stem cells which we saw during our tissue description. So from this, many colony forming units are formed, and they ultimately form erythrocytes, that is our red blood cells, white blood cells, etc. So white blood cells, they are majorly of two types, the granulocytes and agranulocytes. So these three you see here, basophil, neutrophil, and eosinophils. So they have these granules inside them, which are getting dyed by some specific dyes. And then there are platelets, which are responsible for the blood clotting, as well as plugging of any punctures in the blood vessels. And these lymphocyte and monocyte, these are the agranulocytes. So they have their own specific functions. So we have this acquired immunity, which is cell-mediated immunity and humoral immunity as well. This thymus plays a part in labeling the T lymphocytes and these B lymphocytes, which are mostly responsible for the antibodies, and activated T lymphocytes. Then they act as phagocytes. The RBCs, they are formed by a process called erythropoiesis. They need erythropoietin, one hormone, for their formation. And this is this process here I have shown. Bacterium has come and a complement gets stuck to it, and it gets this process is called opsonization. This is how a immune system works. Then coming to spatial senses, so we have eye here in our description. The anatomy of eye, as we know, there are three main layers: the choroid, which is the middle layer; the outer layer is the sclera, and the internmost is the retina of the eye. So the retina is the actual sensor, which helps the eye to give us visual feedback. The lens here, which becomes opaque as we become old, and also it's so there are the suspensory ligaments which are holding the lens, and they are changing the focal length of the lens. Here the iris, which controls the opening, called pupil. And there are these extraocular muscles, which you should know anatomic of these extraocular muscles. So the superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial and lateral rectus. And then this is the inferior oblique, and this is the superior oblique. So here one spatial structure called trochlea is there. So this is your right eye. So here this trochlea. From there, this superior oblique muscle goes, and here these arrows, they show the action of each and every muscle here. Here I have shown the flow of the this in the anterior chamber, the aqueous humor, how it flows, and any problem in this flow of aqueous humor causes a disease called glaucoma, as we know, a very deadly disease, because of which many people are losing their vision. This is the major physiology of vision. These are the 10 layers of retina. From here, the light actually comes from the above, and the rods and cones, as you can see here, they are quite away from the eye. So as we can understand, for the real vision, eye has to do a lot of image processing. So from all these layers, the rays have to pass. Like, all these layers are not seen in one specific area called the fovea centralis, which is for the acute vision. Now what happens when light falls? This ileoensis retinal becomes all transretinal, and then this glutamate release stops. So this is a physiological process which we should know while describing vision. And some other details about the vision. So this is the visual pathway. So what happens to the visual field? So the left visual field and right visual field. So here you can see the right visual field, whatever signals are coming from right side, they culminate on the left side of our in our brain, and the signals which are coming, the light rays which are coming from the left side, they finish in the right. So now from left side on the right side of the brain, and from right visual field to the left side of the brain. So this specifically, like, it helps us. So because of this, like, we have crossover of our major motor and sensory centers inside of, so you must be knowing that the right side of the brain controls the left side, and left side of the brain controls the right side. So that you can understand from here that whatever happens in the right visual field, so if something is coming from right side, you have to stop it with the right hand, and that right hand has to be controlled from the left side, because all the visual information comes from the left side. Then the acuity of vision, so all about your spectacles, why we need spectacles. So this myopia, in myopia, the light rays fall in front of the eye. In hypermetropia, it falls on the behind the retina. In astigmatism, there are multiple axes in which refraction happens, and there are many foci of the lens. So that's why we need cylindrical lenses for astigmatism. Then coming to ear, another special sense. So here the external auditory meatus, it gets connected to the eardrum. That is, so this is the external ear, then the middle ear, and the internal ear. So the middle ear consisting of these three ear ossicles. So these three ear ossicles, there are three bones inside in the middle ear. They carry this sound signals. So whatever vibrational signals are coming from outside, the eardrum starts vibrating, and then this amplification happens at the level of this ear ossicles, and then the vibrations are going into this cochlea, which is actual. So here you can see this helicotrema is the hole in this cochlea, and the cochlea has three parts. So the scala tympani, scala media, and scala vestibuli. So scala vestibuli takes the vibration. So this is stirrup and oval window. So here you can see the stapes is connected to the cochlea here. The vibrations are coming inside, and they run through, and then from the helicotrema they can come back to this scala media, and there is this round window. Here we have a tube called eustachian tube, which goes to the pharynx. So this opens just behind our tongue. This you must have experienced that when we swallow, our ear opens and closes. That is because of this eustachian tube, and if that gets closed, we get a lot of pain in our ears. So during aircraft takeoff and all, we get these experiences. And there are two main muscles inside the ear. So this scala vestibuli, this tensor tympani muscle and stapedius muscle. So these are real skeletal muscles, and with these muscles we can actually voluntarily decide whether to listen to people or not. So it's a nice design. Apart from that, we have another part in this ear that is for balance. So this is the vestibule, and this is the cochlea. We have two types of sensors inside. So this tectorial membrane, and so this organ of Corti, which is there inside your cochlea, and we have another this ampullae. These are there in the semicircular canals. So these semicircular canals, they act as our spirit level of our head. So whenever there is a rotation of head on one side, the acceleration causes inertia changes in this hair cells. Whereas when there is a vibration of when the sound vibration comes in the cochlea, this basilar membrane, it starts moving, and this tectorial membrane, it moves perpendicularly. And here you can see the tips of the hair cell, they open and close, and that generates the sound. Here also there are these outer hair cell and inner hair cells. So it is considered that like fine tuning of whatever we are hearing. So that comes from this ear, and again here there can be cancellation. We can decide what to hear, what not to hear. The understanding of how different frequencies are heard. So at the opening of this oval window, we have high frequency fibers, basilar membrane fibers, and low frequency as you go towards the helicotrema. So there, whatever natural frequency is there, accordingly there will be vibrations seen. Now coming to the endocrine system, we see this endocrine system as we know. Endocrine means those glands which are secreting the secretions directly inside the blood. And we have this hypothalamus in the brain, and then the thyroid gland, parathyroids. Thyroid gland affects metabolism, our temperature, energy expenditure. Parathyroids, they regulate the calcium in the blood. Testes, they secrete male sexual hormones. Adrenal glands, pancreas, adrenal glands, they trigger the autonomic responses. Then the pituitary gland, it is a controlling gland. Hypothalamus and pituitary, they are the master glands which control all other glands. And ovaries, again, they secrete some female hormones. So the actual function, how a hormone functions, so there are target cells, and the hormone will come and sit on a receptor, and then there will be certain changes inside the cell. So this is called second messenger system, in which the messenger actually comes outside, and whatever metabolic changes are going to happen, they happen inside the cell. There are these islets of Langerhans which are secreting insulin, as well as this somatostatin, glucagon. So they control and keep our blood sugar level normal. This is the pituitary, so it is quite connected to the hypothalamus, as here you can see the neurons are coming from there, as well as the blood vessels are also connected. Then coming to the skeletal system. Skeletal system is divided into axial skeletal system. So the bluish colored part you can see here, this is the axial skeleton, and this is the appendicular skeleton. So the hands and legs, they are the appendicular skeleton. We have different types of bones and different types of joints. So long bones, short bones, irregular bones, and then there are flat bones in our head, as well as so this pelvis as well as vertebral column are made from irregular bones. And you have these all different names, so you should know all these names of these bones which are forming your body. Then again, these are the types of synovial joints. As such, there are many different types of joints. So out of that, synovial is joints which are actual moving joints. So we have plane joints, hinge joints, pivot joints, condylite joints, saddle joints, ball and socket joints, and many examples of them. So we should know all these types of joints. Now about the physiology of the skeletal system. So how a bone is mineralized, how a bone is formed. So there is a primary cartilage model which slowly gets mineralized, and we form. So from primary centers, then there are some secondary centers, calcification centers, ossification centers. This is how the bone is formed. Then this is something about the bone remodeling cycle. There are these pre-osteoclasts, which when activated, they form osteoclasts. Osteoclasts are the type of cells which destroy bone, and they will give this calcium, which is there stored in the bone, to our blood, so that the blood calcium level is maintained. Then we have these mononuclear cells, which are help in calling over the osteoblasts. These osteoblasts, so these blast means any cells which are multiplying very fastly. These osteoblasts, their function is to lay down a new bone. So here you can see a new callus has been formed. So this bone formation happens. These osteocytes, they lay down bone. So osteoclasts, we destroy the bone, and osteocytes, which lay down new bone. Here I have tried to show the hierarchical model of bone. So how bone actually has structure. So here you can see the amino acids, they form myofibrils of, fibrils of triple helix fibrils of collagen. And here on other side, we have the small speckles of hydroxyapatite. So the hydroxyapatite crystals and the collagen fibers, they nicely intermingle with each other, and they form this mineralized collagen fibril, which is the actual precursor of our bone. So bone, the way like we have cement concrete. So the pillars which are formed from cement concrete, they have cement and pebbles which are there for this compressive strength, and tensile strength is given by the metal. So the same way we have collagen as well as the hydroxyapatite, which forms the bone. So these are all physiology we should know about bone. Now coming to the muscular system, so there are three types of muscles: the skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscles. Here you can see there are striations in these two muscles. So skeletal muscles and cardiac muscles, they are called striated muscles. So they have specific units inside the fibrils which contract and relax. So this is the physiological process of contraction of a muscle, where you can see how ATP is used. So when ATP gets connected, attached, the head myosin head gets detached from the actin fiber, and then there is hydrolysis of ATP, ADP, and PI is formed. There will be then again locking of actin and myosin, and when the active stroke is being taking place, so this is the actual microscopic contraction, muscle contraction happening at each myosin fiber. picograms of piconewtons of force is generated at each and every myosin fiber. There again, this ADP and inorganic phosphate, it gets detached, and a new ATP is needed. So this cycle keeps on going till the calcium is there available inside the muscle. This opening of calcium channels happens when this action potential from your motor nerve comes and ends on the muscle fibers. Here I have tried to show the physiological importance of what is called a motor unit. So motor unit is one nerve and the muscle fibers which it is supplying. So as a person ages, the number of these motor units keeps on reducing, and the efficiency of muscles reduces. Then coming to the nervous system, so brain is the main part of the central nervous system. So brain and spinal cord, they form the central nervous system. So here I tried to show the different parts of brain, and so mainly the cerebrum, the cerebellum here, and then the pons and medulla, and there are these ventricles of brain. So you should know all this anatomy. Ventricles of brain which contain the cerebrospinal fluid and support the brain from inside. And these are the major areas of brain. So the anterior area, which is for planning complex movements and elaboration of thoughts. Then major motor area, which controls all our actions. Then somatosensory area, sensory input, etc. This is the spinal cord. So these are the descending tracts, the tracts which come from the brain and go to the different parts of body. And these are the ascending tracts which go to the brain, so the nerve. And then this physiology of action potential, how the nerve signal is generated, that also you should know. All the different details about blood supply, brain, etc., that should be known about the blood supply. Then this is the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system, which sympathetic and parasympathetic are the two parts, and they help in maintaining the body functions. Then the cardiovascular system, here about the heart, all the anatomical and physiological description of heart, the cardiac cycle, how the heart contracts and pumps blood, and then the names of, so all the arteries, major arteries of our body, and the veins which are accompanying them, the ECG and the phonocardiogram, so how the heart sounds and the ECG come there. So because of reaching of depolarization, a wave inside the atria, and then the whole ventricles depolarize, and then there is this repolarization wave of at T. This is the conductive system of the heart, and this is the cardiac action potential, which shows you a plateau. This specific plateau is responsible for sustained contraction of the heart, so that the blood inside the heart should escape, and then only the heart should relax. So this is the cardiac cycle, and then the lymphatics inside the tissue, just to show you the lymphatic system. So there is a third system of blood vessels which are more leaky, and these leaky cells, they remove larger materials from the tissue. Then the respiratory system, it consists of, it has two major functions. One is breathing, and also this vitamin D also. There are some steps that happen in the lungs. So this is all about physiology of how the mechanics of so inspiration and expiration takes place. So it's related to the transpulmonary pressure. The alveolar and pleural pressure are responsible for this lung volume. So the negative pump pressure is generated by contraction of this diaphragm and the intercostal muscles. This is about how blood is transported through, oxygen is transported through the blood. This is the oxygen hemoglobin curve. This is about the lung compliance, how during inspiration and expiration, the pleural pressure and lung volume are related. This is called the spirogram, so spirometry. And these are the different parts in the brain which control breathing. This is about the other smaller details about respiratory system. Then the digestive system, so it generates many enzymes and it digests the food, so breaks it down into small absorbable material. So everything from carbohydrate, protein, fat, nucleic acids, everything can be digested by the body by this different hormones. So salivary amylase from saliva, pancreatic amylase, maltase, they all digest the carbohydrates, pepsin, trypsin, peptidase, they digest protein like that. Then this lipase digests fat. And this is something about the physiology of the movement of the muscle, the smooth muscles which are lining the intestine. So here we have a separate nervous system which gets stimulated by any bolus, food bolus coming in. It just starts relaxing the tube, and the latter part it starts contracting so that the food will be pushed ahead. And this I have shown here many different parts of our digestive system, right? Starting from the tongue, the salivary glands, the intestinal lacteals, where actual absorption of food is happening. And this is the biliary tree, the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas, so which are major glands for our digestive system. Then these are the Pierce patches, which are the lymphatics of our intestine inside the intestinal wall, the anal canal. So this most of the surgeries they are done in this region for hemorrhoids, etc. Then the excretory system. So your kidneys, they form urine, and also there are many other functions like this erythropoietin they secrete. They control the blood pressure. You should know about the physiology of micturition reflex, so how the brain controls the micturition. This is the major part which synthesizes erythropoietin whenever required. So there are these different steps through which the urine is secreted. Then the reproductive system. So the male reproductive system, major organ is your testis, and here the ovary and fallopian tubes, and the uterus for the female. This is the menstrual cycle. So here you see that this menses have started here. Then the proliferative phase, where growing of the glands inside the uterus happens. And then this secretory phase, so when the uterus is ready for ovulation. And here same time, so this is the uterus, this is the ovary. Here the ovum is secreted exactly where around at the 14th day of the cycle. And here I've shown that this pituitary gonadotropic hormones, this luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, how their concentrations differ in the body. And this is how the baby can be formed. So from the 0th day to around 6th to 7th day, the implantation happens if there is fertilization. Here I have tried to show how the meiosis process, the formation of spermatozoa as well as the ovum, that takes place. So you can see here that the 2x number or 2n number of chromosomes is converted to a single n number when a final spermatozoa is formed and ovum is formed. So there is a major difference between the spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Whatever number of so every cell here at this level will become a sperm, whereas there will be a first polar body that is formed at the first meiosis, and a second polar body which is formed just before fertilization. And these are the major textbooks. So anatomy, for anatomy, this Gray's Anatomy is like a Bible of anatomy. Then Inderbir Singh, he has many textbooks. Cunningham. Then the books which are right now used by medical students are from this Mr. Vishram Singh, Dr. Vishram Singh. So he has many textbooks as well as MCQs also. Then physiology, this Guyton, Ganong, this local our Indian author Dr. Chaudhary is there, and A.K. Jain. So this is again a more popular book with students. So you can have this textbook as well as they have their own MCQ books. BD Chaurasia, when I did my MBBS, that time BD Chaurasia was like very popular for in the students, but right now it is, I heard that Vishram Singh is being used by students. So thank you for your time. Like this is my Assistant College of Engineering. You are welcome here. We have in our biomedical department 2 courses, bachelor's and a master's course, and we have many